bitches today.
Ironstorm, also known as World War Zero, is a first-person shooter developed by Rebellion and published by Ubisoft for the PS2 in August of 2004. Originally released for the PC in October of 2002, Ironstorm was brought to consoles 2 years later and received surprisingly good review scores from a lot of critics. This is a hard one to critique, as when I carried out some research on the game I did find some noticeable differences between the PC and console version, so I'll just say right up front that any comments on this title only pertain to the PS2 game. Now, one thing you should know about this channel is that I don't actually choose the games that I review. In order to keep things varied and prevent me from choosing my favourite games, I have a system which chooses a game at random each week. The bad part about this system is that it means I could end up playing all of the worst games week after week. The good part about this system is that it means I could end up playing all of the worst games week after week. And this is how we end up with this gem. So let me fill you in on Ironstorm's, aka World War Zero's, premise. Set in an alternate history in which World War I never ended, the game takes place in 1964 and focuses on the Allied soldiers' mission to stop the Russo-Mongolian Empire from developing nuclear weapons and hopefully end the war. You take control of Lieutenant James Anderson, a legendary soldier on the battlefield who is somewhat of a silent protagonist, but not in the cool way like Gordon Freeman, but more like this game had a really small budget and it was cheaper to not have him speak. Anyway, Anderson is tasked with breaching the enemy's territory, by himself for some reason, with the objective of throwing a spanner into the works of their weapons development. There are a few okay plot twists that I won't spoil, but let's just say it's a story full of shady organisations with ulterior motives. The big issue with the story is that it can be quite hard to follow. I didn't actually see a cutscene until the third mission, and new missions just start and end without any narrative or exposition at all to update you on what you've just accomplished. From a gameplay perspective, the best thing that I can say about this title is that it is playable. This game might just be in the dictionary next to budget FPS, as with every step you take, every pull of a trigger and every throw of a grenade, you see the lack of money behind this thing. As I mentioned before, it is playable. Luckily it's not massively challenging or frustrating. Missions move at a decent pace, mainly due to the auto-aim that helps you gun down enemies as you work through your way through an endless amount of trenches and corridors. All of the basic FPS weapons are here, from assault rifles and shotguns to sniper rifles and rocket launchers, and while variety is always welcome, not one of these weapons feel as they should, and all of the shooting feels quite limp. Missions present you with both primary and secondary objectives. Primary objectives focus you on getting from A to B, and the secondary objectives are basically your superiors telling you, hey, if you could blow this thing up along the way, that would be great. Thanks. Honestly, you'll lose interest in all of this very quickly because there are no waypoints and the game doesn't give you any subtle direction, so occasionally you'll be aimlessly wandering around some of the trenches that look exactly like the other trench, causing you to question your sanity. Discussing the good and bad of this game is pretty difficult, as it's such a bare experience that at times it feels like you're playing something that wasn't due for release for another year. You get into plenty of firefights with the opposing forces, but they just feel exactly the same as the last shootout. Arguably the most baffling aspect of this game is the visuals. This game looks bad. Like really bad. Like, who made this bad? Like, I think someone may have lost their job bad. Everything about this game looks ugly, even for a game in 2002, and especially a game re-released in 2004. Every texture looks stretched or blurry, all of the weapons look like you've accidentally put in a PS1 game, and every area looks more bland than I thought possible in a game. Now, I know this is supposed to be a game based in a war-torn land, but even with that in mind, Ironstorm wastes its alternate history scenario by presenting lifeless and empty environments that make you feel like you could just as easily be battling on Mars instead of through Europe. Sound design is no better, with some mission information fed to you over the radio that is such poor quality I just gave up listening after a while. There is no score or background music to add a little tension or flavour to the missions either, and at every turn you just keep discovering the game's lack of budget in new ways. All in all, I'm not sure if I have much more to say on this one. The only enjoyment I took from this game was my own twisted pleasure of seeing how bad games can get. Once again, I do have to say that it is a shame that this game's setting is wasted, as it did have potential for something interesting, but sadly my experience with World War Zero was mindless, ugly and repetitive. Hopefully my next review will result in something I can recommend for your collection, but as for this game, it's a straight 1 star, and this will never be thought of, let alone played again.